how do chords work? What's a triad? What the heck does augmented mean? Well, come with me on a journey of discovery. Before we get into this, I think you should grab a piece of paper, just whatever's laying around, just a scrap to write stuff down. It'll help you remember. There's a lot of information. So first of all, a triad is just a 3-note chord. So that's nice and easy. The first thing we're gonna need to talk about, the first thing you're gonna need to know is scale degree. This is very simple. All you gotta do is take the notes of a major scale. I'm gonna do D for this example because I feel like it. D, what's the next note? E. And then you're gonna just put numbers down along the scale. So D is 1, E is 2, then we get to D. Some people will call it 8 sometimes. That's useful. Today it's not going to be useful. So this also is 1 again, or 8. I don't care. Whatever you want to do. Either one, doesn't matter. And these numbers here are what we call scale degree. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is just make a quick table of all of these useful triads. There will be 4 columns and 5 rows. So the first column is going to be the chord quality. And chord quality is essentially just what flavor of chord it is, right? So as an example, our first one is going to be major, right? So that's the chord quality. It's major. Now in the next column, we're going to put scale degree. So to make a major chord, what you do is you take the first, the third, and the fifth of the major scale, and you play them all together. And that's it. That's how you get a major chord. We'll do chord symbol, and this will be for an example, and then the notes that are in that example. So if we take D major, you know, because we just did the D major scale just a moment ago, and you definitely still have it written down, right? You take the first, the third, and the fifth note of that major scale, and you get D, F sharp, and A. And if you play all of those notes at the same time, that's a D major chord. That's the whole thing. That's how you make a major chord. You just gotta make sure that you're using the first, the third, and the fifth of the major scale. A very common pitfall that people fall into is instead of using the major scale, they just count up letter names. And if you do that in D, you get D, E, F is the third, but F is not the third because the third note in the D major scale is an F sharp. So make sure that you're referencing the major scale, not just counting up letters, right? The next one is going to be minor, and it has a flat third in it, and otherwise the same. 1, flat 3, and 5. So there are kind of 2 chord symbols you'll see for this guy. Most commonly, I think, you'll see D with little m, but sometimes when you're hanging out with the jazz cats, they'll throw D with a little minus sign at you. So it's kind of either one, you know? So what you do here is you take your third, right, which is normally F sharp, and you flat it. So that's D, F, A. Right? Now you may be thinking to yourself, that's not a flat, that's a natural. But it's because we're starting on F sharp, we're flatting the F sharp. The flat and the sharp kind of cancel each other out and meet in the middle at F natural. So D, F, A is your minor chord. Now let's do diminished. I wonder if I have enough space to write it. Diminished, kind of. You can't read it, but it says diminished. I hope you can spell that. So diminished chord has a 1, a flat 3, and a flat 5. Look at that. You may be noticing the pattern that these are all kind of 1s and 3s and 5s, huh? So this guy also has 2 common chord symbols. You will see D with a little dim, D-I-M, short for diminished, right? Or the one that I much prefer is just a little circle. I like the little circle. It's neat. The notes of a D diminished chord Right, you got the 1, which is D, right? You got the flat 3, which is, okay, you go up to the 3rd, which is F sharp, and then you flat it, so it goes back to F. And then you have a flat 5. So the 5th note in D is A, so you gotta go down a step from A, and then you get A flat, right? So, if you got D, F, and A flat, that's a D diminished chord. Another guy you gotta know is suspended 4. Suspended 4. Often, mostly actually, shortened to sus4. Now, what a suspended chord is essentially it doesn't have a 3rd, right? This pattern of 1, 3, and 5 is ubiquitous, right? So when you see sus4, what that means is instead of the 3rd, you're going to use the 4. So 1, 4, and 5. So the chord symbol for this guy is D sus4, and is that called superscript when it's up like that? I don't know. Yell at me in the comments about that. And now, so if you're going to do 1, 4, 5, 1 is D for duh. 4, what's the 4th note in the D major scale? Did you write it down? Did you write down the D major scale like I told you to? The 4th note of the D major scale is G. So 1, 4, 5, D, G, the 5th is A. Dga. This is D sus4. Now, something I should mention is that sometimes, if you're playing Oasis songs, you know, Champagne Supernova, you get a sus2 chord. This is kind of rare, but it does happen. And a sus2 chord kind of follows the same rules, right? Like a sus4 is instead of the 3rd, you use the 4. So sus2, you got a 1, 2, and 5. No 3rd, you get a 2. 1, 2, 5, sus2. I don't want to, you get it. You write it down if you want. Now the final one that I am going to write down, which is maybe my favorite, is augmented. Now, augmented. I have once again not given myself enough space to write it clearly. Augmented, A-U-G-M-E-N-T-E-D, augmented. I think I spelled that right. I don't know, I'm a little bit dyslexic, okay? So, we got a 1, we got a 3, we got a sharp 5. So fun fact about the augmented chord, you can't find it anywhere in the major scale. You have to borrow notes outside of the major scale in order to make one of these chords. It's from an alternate dimension where scales only have 6 notes, and every note is just a whole step away from the next note, and everything sounds like it's in a dream or it's some kind of flashback montage from the Twilight Zone. Augmented's cool. I like it a lot. Anyway, it's got 2 chord symbols. Most commonly, people will write it like this. D-A-U-G. D-aug. However, I think it's much cooler to do D with a little plus sign. That's the grade I got in most of my high school classes. D+. You did bad, but please go away. The notes of this guy, we're gonna do a D, because it's 1, right? The 3rd is F sharp still, and then a sharp 5. So A is our natural 5, right? So we're gonna sharp it to A sharp. Yeah. And right there you have all of the useful triads that have names and stuff. So make sure you write this down just for the sake of memory stuff. Obviously, I guess you could revisit this video or others like it, but I think if you write it down, it's good for building memories, you know? And as a music teacher who does this all the time, I can say it's definitely a real thing. Write it down. It'll help. You'll be better at music if you write this down. If you want to learn more, I'll be putting more videos like this up, so subscribe. And also, I'm doing lessons, so, you know, hit me up. Leave a comment, send a direct message, whatever. Yeah.